want to innovate, but they don't want to fail, right?
Is that, like when you're doing discovery right, I think one of the key elements that it helps you achieve is it helps you become an empowered team. And
I am really, really thrilled today. I'm very excited. You will see me buzzing and having a really good time. That's me trying to hide my anxiety. No, not really. This is really fun for me. I'm Amber. I am the host and the founder of this community. What do we have today? I'm going to share a quote with you, and I'm going to quiz you. Build something 100 people love, not something 1 million kind of like. Build something 100 people love, not something 1 million kind of like. Who said that? Not Steve Jobs, guys. Not everything about product is about Steve Jobs. It is, but yeah. Brian Chesky. Who's Brian Chesky? Airbnb, right? So this guy is famous for, he has a design background. He is the founder and CEO of Airbnb, and he really revolutionized an industry and really disrupted it. Why am I using this quote? Because this quote perfectly captures the essence of what we are going to explore today. And this essence is about the impact of truly understanding and innovating in design and product, creating products that are loved. So today we have two really incredible speakers who embody this philosophy in their work. And this is what they are going to share. So without further ado, I want to start with the first speaker. Her name is Sruthi Poduval. And yes, give a round of applause to Sruthi. Sruthi has a very interesting background that she is going to share later on, but I want to put a spotlight on some really interesting tidbits about her. First 2 years of her career were as an engineer. So she started out as an engineer and moved into product in 2015. She's been through a lot of different product companies, KPMG, Tajawul, Al Musafir, Sira, and now the Giving Movement. So today, Sruthi is going to share some really fascinating insights and stories from her experience driving product-led growth across the different companies that she has worked. So let's welcome Sruthi here.
thanks. Before we get started, here is a brief on me. So I was actually born in India. I'm from India. I was educated and lived a lot. All of my education was actually in India. My dad was in the defense, so I'm actually what you guys call a defense brat. I have studied in like different schools, 7 schools at least, the ones that I can remember at least. And I've been like, literally living throughout the country for my education itself. So after I finished the education, I did my engineering if you're from India, you'll understand and you'll resonate from me, right? We all become engineers first and then figure out what we want to do with our life. So I literally did the same thing as well. I became an engineer, started doing development, didn't really figure out what this whole thing was, didn't really understand, it was not really going well with me, so decided to do an MBA. Went ahead and did that, got picked up by a consulting company, still don't understand what's happening. So consulting was going on in one track, still was not completely clear what's actually happening in life, what's actually happening in work, and somehow fell into product delivery at consulting. So I was doing a lot of delivery over there. I was getting things developed for different clients, getting things live, not really understanding why. Then fell into Al Musafir, started working with Ronnie, and actually understood, oh, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that's why I give so much importance to product discovery and really understanding the essence or the reasoning behind why we are doing what we're doing. So after Al Musafir, I was in flights over there. I was doing a lot of product work for flights, following which I moved to the Giving Movement. The Giving Movement, when I moved, was a tiny, small fashion startup that was trying to figure out what its place is going to be in the market, in the world over here. And today, I think all of you are aware of the name, and that itself is a huge win for us. Yeah, so if you're not aware of the exact meaning of product discovery, I've put a definition out here for you. You can easily find this on the internet. But in order to explain what product discovery is, it's basically figuring out what you should build. That's it. It's basically doing any number of techniques that you can, like your customer interviews, your research through data, your whatever it is that you can think of, to decide what it is that you should build. As an engineering team, as a development team, it is very essential to look at what proof you have, what understanding you have of the problem before you figure out, and start developing solutions. I'm sure that a lot of you might be in companies where, your roadmap is just given to you and you have to just go on executing it. Even if you don't completely agree with, what's in the roadmap, what's in the plan, there is no way for you to question it or even figure out or even understand why you're building what you're building. That's where I think product discovery really comes into key. I have just split it into two different diagrams because I find this really helpful, even for me to understand when I'm getting confused sometimes. So as I just said, discovery is everything that you do for a problem in order to understand a problem, and delivery is everything that you do in order to develop the solution, get it out there into the world, into people's hands. So this is what I really like to emphasize or explain when I talk to people. That is, finding the right product to build is product discovery, and building the product right is product delivery. You see, it's a play on words and all of that, but it's so amazing and it's so perfect. If you understand the meaning of that, then you can really differentiate between discovery and the importance of it. Now, why should companies actually invest in product discovery, right? So I've gone back and picked up this diagram that we find online very easily. And I think the essence or the main point is that you should do product discovery because you need to try and prevent this. This is that classic diagram of, what the customer actually wanted, what the product leader actually understood, what actually got developed, and what actually went live. It's all completely different. There is no point to it. Nobody got anything out of it. Neither the company nor the customer, no one achieved anything out of it. The whole point of product discovery is to prevent this, so that such a situation does not happen, and the thing that you are developing or the software that you're getting out is actually creating value for the customer and hence creating value for the business. So the first and the primary point is, the main reason why you should do discovery is to understand why you're building what you're building. I think I said this a couple of times. So if you actually understand why you're doing what you're doing, you will be able to create a better solution, which will in effect solve your target problem. You become really close to the customer. The more you do product discovery, the more you understand your customer's problem statements, the pain points and everything, and you are actually building something which is of value. You're focusing on solving the real problem. It removes the solution bias. So what I mean by solution bias is, I'm sure you guys would have seen that, when you're actually talking about solving a problem in your team, immediately there will be a solution that will be on someone's mind, either the PMs, or either the engineers, or either the designers, or either the person who has actually asked you to build it. There is a bias when it comes to solution bias, right? It helps remove this. The more discovery you do, the more proof you come up with, and the more proof you actually take to your business and say that, this is the reason why I'm going in this direction, or this is the reason why I'm building this particular solution. It helps you get the right thing developed. It solves for hippo. Now, I'm sure you guys know what hippo is, right? It is the highest paid person's opinion. So when you're actually building something, a lot of the times someone just tells you, build this. And no matter how much you try to go against it, it's very difficult to convince that other person, most probably your boss, that, that doesn't seem right. Maybe there is a better solution. Maybe there is a cheaper solution. Maybe there is a faster solution in order to solve that problem. With discovery, you can actually solve that. So when a solution gets told to you that, develop this, what you should ideally do is you should go and look for your proof. You should look for your customer insights. You should look for what data is available to you. If you don't have any data, you should go and look for avenues to find data, like run a small experiment or run something in order to find that data, so that you can actually create some some solution, something that you can actually take as proof in order to your boss and say that, there is a cheaper solution to it, there is a better solution to it, so why not, let's just explore that. Other reasons of why you should, do product discovery. So these are some stats that actually, Netflix has, Airbnb has, Google has. You should really focus on, when you're building solutions, really focusing on failing fast, basically. You don't understand something, figure out what is the minimum MVP or minimum thing that you can put out on the market in order to get an answer. Fail fast, learn fast. I think that's the main key. I think my own test success rates, I put this as a point so I can tell you my own test success rates. This is all Netflix, Airbnb and all of that. I think I can confidently tell you that I think of all the tests that I have ran, of all the assumptions, of everything that I have validated, maybe about like 10 to 15% of it has turned out to be right. Discovery done right, actually, like if you actually spend more time on the problem statement, you can actually get good value out of it. And I have a lot of examples of, like my own tests that have actually delivered good results and my own tests that have gone up like crazy and like done wrong. So to give an example of, discovery done right, I think when I was in Al-Musaffar, I think we did a whole lot of discovery on building the fair calendar. And what we did over there was, like we actually took the fair calendars from competitor websites. We didn't have one. So Al-Musaffar is basically a travel booking engine site. So you guys know the Make My Trips and like, all of those sites, right? So Al-Musaffar is a Middle East-based version of it, and it is something which is very catered for the Saudi and Middle East audience. And so I was part of the flights team, right? So we wanted to build a calendar, like a fair calendar. Now this is something that Google has, like everyone has, right? Like the fair calendar, everyone has. So we wanted to build one, and we knew that it's going to take us a lot of time in order to build it. Delivery is going to take a lot of time. So we wanted to convince our boss that, we're going to take so much time to build this, and we need a bit of money, time, energy, resources, everything in order to build this. So what we did, we actually we took a couple of competitors like Google and other competitor sites, and we went to customers and we showed them, what do you think of this? Like, is this, how do you use this? And we just ran some tests with customers on the competitor websites and tried to understand what they're doing with the site, like try to understand what they're liking, what they're not liking. And you will not believe, I think one of the main key insights that we had from that experience was that, that the customers, they were like very familiar with the fair calendar, they were liking it, they did not mind it at all. But what really stood out was that the filters, so customers really have preferences for the airlines that they travel, the time that they are intended to travel. So having that filters put on top of the calendar was something that was the most interesting to customers, which we were not even planning to build. It was not even in the part of our 7th or 8th, phase that we were planning. But having understood this from customer insights, it became really clear to us that, in order to have a success, or like in order to see some good numbers after building this feature, we had to like incorporate this element that we have just found from talking to customers. So that was, I think, a very good example of, something that worked in our favor of discovery done right. I also have a bunch of examples of, things going wrong with discovery done wrong. I think one key example that really stands out to me was there was this button, again, in Al-Musaffar that was not getting clicked at all. And we just knew that if we can get customers to click on that button, they'll be able to see so many more flight options, and it can actually help, like get them to convert more, like get them to see more options, and hence like purchase better tickets or better options. And no matter what we do, we were not able to get them to click that button. It was just something called more options or something like that. And we just couldn't like expand everything because of space, right? So we ran so many tests, like we ran like so many different tests, put the button here, change the color, increase the size, like no matter what we did, it was not working out. In the end, we spent a lot of, like energy and resources from our dev team and built a multivariant test where we were testing like 8 different variants on the, like, putting the button here, putting the button there, putting the button here, like different options on the site. And I can tell you it resulted in nothing. They were all performing exactly similar. It was, I think, a classic case of, discovery done wrong, not understanding what you're trying to achieve, like problem not clear, solution not clear, just got 8 solutions developed and running, and nothing came out of it. It was a good learning lesson for me, that's it. But yeah, other than that, I think nothing came out of it. So yeah, when you're doing discovery also, you have to be really careful as to like what you want to achieve. I think I'll talk a bit more about that later. I think the last point I think I missed speaking about it is that, like when you're doing discovery right, I think one of the key elements that it helps you achieve is it helps you become an empowered team. And that's really crucial because, an empowered team can actually go back and tell their boss or like tell their leaders that, these are the 3 things that we want to focus in this quarter, and this is why. And as long as you won't be able to do that, there will always be roadmaps given to you or like stakeholders driving your roadmaps. When to do product discovery. So this is key, right? Now don't get me wrong. So product discovery is actually very expensive. You're actually putting time and energy and resources of your team in order to discover a problem. So it's gonna be difficult to get your stakeholders and your like people above you convinced that, what, I want to spend some time understanding the problem. They will always have this question as to, oh, why don't you just develop and find out if it actually works or not? So that's where like you yourself should put your theory into test with this. Is it actually a one-door decision or is it actually a two-way decision? If it's a two-way decision, if it's a small thing, then you don't really need to do discovery to figure out if things are wrong or not. So I use this famous example, I told Amber as well, and I get a lot of reactions for it, right? So this example that I use all the time is that, when your light bulb is off, you don't need to do discovery to figure out that, you just need to fix it and put a new one. No discovery needed, nothing needed, right? Just fix it. It's not working, just fix it. Whereas if there is a bigger problem, you don't understand, like it's completely not clear, it's a big decision, you need to like figure out if you want to go in this direction, you want to build a feature that, that's going to last 4-5 months, or like you want to build a calendar versus something which is another huge feature, that is when you do discovery. You go and talk to your customers, you look for data, you look for different things that can actually support your theory that you have. And if you don't find that, then maybe you really need to ask, why is it that you're going in that direction? Right, now how to get started, right? So now you know that it can really, product discovery can really help you. So how to get started? So it's really essential, it's really important and really essential that you know what you're trying to achieve. So have an objective. Now your objective can be something that something that you set for quarter. It can be something like, I want to increase the conversion of my platform from 4% to 5%. It can be that, I want to reduce the customer contact rates from 10 per day to 5 per day. It can be that I want 5 customers to come back to my platform every day rather than every 2 days. It can be, your objective can be your business objective, that's fine. It can also be a customer objective. It can be that, I want the journey for the customers to be easy. Like that, for example, I want them to convert this step in 5 seconds instead of 10 seconds. So have an objective, okay? And for that objective, define what the problem is or what is the opportunity that you can go after. For example, I want to reduce my customer contacts from 10 to 8, right? Now this is my objective, and now I want to figure out how to do it, right? So I need to go and figure out what are the problems that I can find, or like what are the opportunities that I can find which can actually help me reduce the customer contacts from 10 to 8. For example, I think this is the example that I was just speaking about is something that I've actually done, where I've gone and like explored how to reduce customer contacts from a set number to another, to reduce it basically. So you go through your data that you have, you go through the tickets, you go through like whatever information you have and try and figure out what are the ones that you could probably automate. Like, okay, if someone is asking like, where is my return policy? Maybe we can just give a link to it. And if they're still not happy, then they can obviously come and contact the agent later. But we need to try. And maybe we will not be able to reduce from 10 to 7, but maybe we'll be able to reduce from 10 to 9, right? So those are the kind of things that you can explore as your problems. For each problem, create a hypothesis. So doing this can actually, for example, showing the return information can actually reduce the contact rate on that. That's a hypothesis. And then validate it with another test. Like figure out something, okay, if I show this information on WhatsApp, the moment somebody creates a order or a booking, will it actually help me solve this return request contacts that I'm having? So that's a test now. Right? So have your objectives, have your problem, hypothesis, all of these things completely defined. If not, it's going to be like complete chaos and like you will not really understand what is it that you're going after. Another thing that can really help you, get started with product discovery is real customer focus. Now, I know you're not able to read it, but that's the point. So this is actually a Miro board. This is from my current organization. It's a Miro board of all the customer interviews that we're doing. And honestly, everywhere I have maintained a board like this, everywhere. And the point to it is that, like I think every week or every weekly, we will go and speak to our customers. We will go and be in touch with them. We will try and figure out what it is that they are saying. What they like about our products, what they don't like about our products, what the general sense is, what their persona is. We will document all of it, so that when someone comes and tells you something which is not true, and they ask you like, how do you know that's not true? You bring this board up. We have insights from 25 customers that we have spoken to. What do you have? Right? And trust me, it always works. It always works. It always works. So you just need to keep doing it every week. You may not get the result in the next week, the week after, but eventually, trust me, there will be a day where you will go back and refer to this board and say that, you know what, I have insights from so many people, and hence I know I'm right. Now, how to validate and like get your assumptions, how to validate and build your things faster, right? Experimentation is the key, guys. It's the key. Experimentation is the key. We cannot go into like big feature development and all of, we cannot get what we want or like build big features without having a good experiment around it, and without that experiment, being validated, or that hypothesis being validated. Now, when you figure out a solution, for example, in our last example, we want to send the return information on a WhatsApp message, right? Now, that's an experiment. Now, in that experiment, there is an assumption saying that all our customers have actually WhatsApp. Another hypothesis is that when they get WhatsApp, they will not be irritated, they will in fact read it. The third hypothesis is that when they get a WhatsApp message, they will not block us. We don't want to lose our existing customers itself, right? So you see, in that small experiment that I just mentioned earlier, we have 3 hypotheses, right? So each of these that I mentioned right now, you need to validate. And you need to run an experiment in order to validate. If the risk is that our existing customer base can actually block us on WhatsApp, you identify like a section, like 10% or something, and run this feature that you're introducing as an experiment, and try and figure out if it's actually helping you or actually not helping you, like the negative is happening. That's why I'm saying experimentation is key. No matter what you launch, it's very important to keep having that experimentation mindset on, not just backlog, mindset on, because you also as a PM or an engineer need to know that the feature that you've released is not the all and end all of it. You might have to come back and look at it again, like fix it again, and like really understand what's happening with it. Use this to your benefit. So this is the cognitive psychology, which I also discovered eventually in my career. I did not know about this at all, actually. Honestly, Al-Mustafa, I did not know this at all. I just recently discovered this. And I find it really fascinating, actually. These are things that we already are used to. For example, the Instagram swipe, which is the up one. Customers are already, like people like us, we already know this, right? Use it to your advantage. When you're designing a test, or when you're designing something that you're going to test out with customers, use these psychology angles or aspects that customers are already used to, your customers may already be used to your advantage. The more options one. Now this I have learned from my own experience. At TJM, we are struggling with it so long. Like, we sell t-shirts, right? And we have so many of them, right? So we are always trying, and we have so many colors of it as well. We are always trying to figure out what is the right balance to show. Like, how many products do we show? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 200? Is it 2000? And what colors do we show first? What products do we show first? We have too many products to show. We have too much to show. We are really trying to figure out, how much is too much. So too many options, it's too difficult for a customer. They get really distracted, and you're going to lose him. And I think as product people ourselves, we have this tendency to put as many options we want onto the platform to see if they take anything, but that's wrong. But use it to your advantage. The confirmation bias, honestly, there are like 100 of them. I have just put like 3 that I could find. So there's so many. I can send a link to it if you guys want, and use it to your advantage. The last point is, in order to convince people, measure the impact. It's not enough that you do all this problem exploration, define your define your problem, find an experiment, run an experiment, and then just leave it, and then just forget about it. The next time, you won't be able to convince anyone why you're doing what you're doing, right? So measure its impact. Measure the impact of that experiment, measure what actually happened with it, and then tie it back to your objective. So if your original objective, in our case, it was reducing the customer contacts from 10 to 8, right? Measure the impact to that same objective, right? Don't measure it saying that, okay, so now that you've run this experiment, we didn't achieve that. Instead, we have achieved something else, right? That kills the whole purpose of it. So measure your experiment to the objective that you've set against it and see if it actually worked or not. Because if it did not, then it has clearly failed. And you need to go back and figure out another solution or another experiment in order to go towards your objective. I think that's it from me, And just to conclude, these are the key points that I'm hoping that you would take away from what I was saying so far. Product discovery is not actually just a good to have, guys. It's very important in every business. The scale of it, the level of it can be optional. You can decide how you want to do discovery. You can decide when you want to do. But for big things, and in order to avoid cost and delays, and in order to give the best value, basically, to customers and to your business, it is key that you as a team invest in product discovery. Discovery is costly. Just because you've learned this new trick, don't put it everywhere. That's also one of my own mistakes. We also went through a whole course. Ronnie taught us, this whole course with different people from here and there as to how to do discovery. We ended up putting it everywhere. It delayed our entire product delivery, timelines, everything was getting delayed. We did not know better, but so don't do that. don't use discovery everywhere. Use it only where it is absolutely necessary. Value drives everything. If your management and people are not really sure as to why you need to speak to 50 customers in order to decide something that they may already know, show them the value. Show them, show them the value that can come out of speaking to more customers, understanding, getting a clearer picture of what's happening. Value drives everything. The more, if you can actually show a successful experiment and see, and say the entire story, trust me, your management will be do that more, figure out more. Customer is key. Do not forget this. No matter how much we claim that we know what's happening with our business, just go and ask a customer and they might just tell you a completely different picture. Now, this has happened to us so many times, right? At the giving movement, we think of all these terms that we put on our site. For example, I can't think of it, soft skin, right? Now, customers don't really know what that means. All we mean is really soft fabric, right? So it has happened to us so much, that we assume things that customers know. We go after all these things, but more often, if you just go and ask them, we'll tell you what they know and what they don't know, and it will keep adding up to that board that I showed, remember? So from there, eventually you'll know that, okay, this works and this does not work. So customer is key, do not forget that. And in the end, empowered teams, create a lot of value and good value in the long run. And what I mean by this is that, eventually, if you want to become a team that wants to have its own roadmap and tell your boss that, this is what I want to do in this quarter, and this is why, product discovery is key. You cannot have a roadmap and you cannot put 1, 2, 3 and have no basis, no value of why you are doing something in a quarter. However, if you have a clear understanding, if you have data, if you have proof, if you have run your small experiments, and if you have data pointing in the direction of what's working, what's not working, trust me, then you're an empowered team and you're creating value. That's it.
Kizz started out, there is a long intro in your slides, I know, Kizz, but I really wanted to say this because this is really interesting. Started out as an industrial designer. Anybody knows what an industrial designer does? Because I don't. There is only one person here. So maybe you should talk about it. That's really interesting. I don't know what an industrial designer does, but that's how he started out. 2 years as an industrial designer and then moved into the UX design. Spent 4.5 years at O2 Money building financial products. Back in the UK, 3 years at IBM, that's where our paths crossed, building the practice and maturing design there. 2 years with PwC, where you really drove some amazing results. I think 150% growth in revenues. So that's really inspiring. Now at Do, for the past almost 3 years, Kizz has been building the design practice, maturing it, and most interestingly for all of us and our advantage today, Kizz is going to share some really interesting insights about how he's building a customer-centric culture at Do. And those of you who are not Do customers will get a bit of a sneak peek, and maybe you'll become Do. I don't know. But let's welcome Kizz.
Well, good evening, ladies and gents. Okay, so thank you very much. I feel very humbled with that intro. So, yeah, my background is industrial design. So, originally, industrial design is traditionally spoken, you build products. So, you're an engineer, but a creative engineer. So, my whole vision for my career was always to build something physical, tangible, before interfaces were really a big thing. UX was a thing, but industrial design was more about getting a job at Nike, designing trainers, doing sports, that type of thing. Or if you joined an automotive company like Jaguar Land Rover. So that was kind of my vision for the career. Graduated, there was a recession, and I was like, uh-oh, I don't have a job. So fortunately, we touched upon UX as one of our classes at university. The good thing about where I went to Loughborough in the UK. Is anyone familiar with that university? Yeah, awesome. See 2 hands. So Loughborough at the time was the best design school at the time for industrial design. So standard Asian family, get the best grades, go to the best school, get the best job, and become an engineer. So that's kind of where my path was going. And then fortunately O2 came to my university at the time, and they were running a competition, and they basically said, we want to create an app that allows customers to make payments using their mobile phone. So this is before Apple Pay, before all of these types of products were out there. So the good thing is there was no constraints in my mind. I hadn't seen any products like this before, so I could create the art of the possible, and lo and behold, it went to market, they built it. But this is a good example of failure as well, because we were too early to the market. O2 money wasn't trusted as a financial service. O2 is a telco, so why are they in the finance market? So that product was a complete flop, but it was a good proof in terms of where design can get you, where disruption can get you as well. So that's kind of a very quick background intro as to how I got into UX. So tonight I just want to keep it kind of short and sweet, because I know everyone's on the hump day, it's Wednesday. And of course it's in the evening, so and you've all been solving creative problems all day. So tonight I just want to talk to you briefly about the true power of experience design. It was originally meant to be about UX, and we at Do have, well, I say we, when I first joined Do, it was a UX design team. It was a tiny, tiny team. They had a legacy team there, but the digital transformation had to happen because they have to move with times. So a brand new team was created, brand new budgets, brand new squads, talent from around the world, from the US, Australia, UK, Europe, everyone coming together. And I rebranded it to Experience Design and built the practice from there. So I just want to talk you through this. So really the talk is about digital transformation. So hands in the air if you've heard of a digital transformation before. Okay, so the majority of you, and how many have actually been a part of a digital transformation? So quite a few as well. So you know it's incredibly difficult. Like, it's one of the hardest things as a creative to go through, as a company to go through, because there's so much on the line. The main concern, really, and McKinsey did a study with 100 CEOs and executives. This is going back 3 years back, so just after COVID. And the one concern was about risk of change, risk of it flopping and losing jobs, risk of losing money, revenue. There were so many reasons why risk was at the forefront of why digital transformation isn't going to be successful. And I don't blame them, because 70% of digital transformations actually do fail, which is pretty high. So in 2022, $1.3 trillion was spent just on digital transformation. So that's a huge amount. And the reason for this is there's new companies coming up, startups, which is awesome. We need startups, we need those cultures, we need people to really disrupt parts of the market. But 1.3 trillion was spent, but of that, 900 billion was lost. So it's a huge amount. And what that means for us creatives is we tend to be one of the first teams to get the cut, which tends to be the case. Because as creatives, we often are seen as the cherry on top. We aren't the spear, the point of the spear. So that's kind of the challenge that I had when I first joined Do. And where are my 80s babies or 90s babies? Who remembers Blockbuster? Yeah? So that reminiscence, nostalgia, I miss it, but it was awesome. But Blockbuster is a good example of why you need to digital transform successfully. And move with the times and innovate. It's not just the designer's job, it's also the business's job to innovate. And product discovery, for example, is a good reason for that. You can discover where there's gaps and where the company needs to start moving. So why did they fail? Well, Netflix came about. They didn't move with the times, they didn't innovate. And that's one of the biggest challenges. So Blockbuster, they were $1 billion in debt. And well, if we look at Netflix, actually Netflix is 79.72 billion now. This is an old slide, but yeah, they're doing incredibly well. And I'm sure everyone's got a subscription here. So why does this happen? So digital transformations tend to not work out mainly because of three really key factors. One of them being little to no change management strategy. So change management is a boring business term, and as designers, we need to start speaking more about business. We are business designers. That's the only way you can influence a multi-billion-dollar company. It's the only way. With little to no change management, what happens is people within the existing organization don't know what's going to happen. They're not on board with the vision. They don't know the strategy. Why are we doing this? Are we going to lose our job? Our app works, our website works, we're killing it with the finances, we're getting the revenue through the door. But is that really going to work out? Probably not, and that's why digital transformation is needed. But with a management strategy, with a change management strategy, you're 6 times more likely to succeed. So it's really important to have that. And then, show of hands, how many people have been in this position where it's tech-led and not experience-led? Yeah, pretty much all of us, huh? And that's a pain. So one of the main reasons why digital transformations fail is because they tend to get tech involved early on without creating that future state vision. And then for, in terms of the actual 4 Ps of this, so the first thing that you need to do in order to make this work, and it doesn't matter if you're at a small startup, whether you're at an agency, a consultancy, or a product company, start off with the people. Who do you need to actually make this work? The MVP people, the basics. Start with the basics. Then you go into the portfolio. What type of products do you want to create? What is it that we're actually trying to do? And not always looking at your competitor and saying, oh, they've got a really cool app, we need that, or we need this feature because they have it. Do it for your market. And then in terms of the process, our user experience process. For example, how many people actually follow the double diamond to the T? Very few. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, yeah. So unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way in a company, right? The double diamond, it's there to guide us, but most days we don't get the luxury to do proper discover, design, develop, deliver, and then iterate and come back. So the process needs to be established on how you're going to work around this agile methodology. And then finally, the platform. Do we have the platform there? Is the tech there? What do we need? And so on and so forth. And then the last one is doing too much too fast all at once because the CEO wants everything by September and we're already in August. So it's one of those. But you've probably heard this buzzword, agile. I don't know what that is. No, it's a lovely term, but being agile is being able to adapt to what comes at a certain period of time. So you need to be able to adapt with the movement and actually foresee that before it's coming up. So that's really what it is. So tonight I changed it again. It was going to be about digital transformation, but it's actually design transformation. So make it relatable to us and what actually happened at our end. I will go through these very at a high level, really, because I know at the time and it's very, very small. But for example, the reason for the power of experience design is that there's so many use cases and case studies of successful design. One of them being with Adobe, and a company with a strong design presence outperforms every other company by 219% in the S&P. So anybody, like, for example, we mentioned like Spotify, Airbnb, and so on and so forth. If they aren't putting design first, they wouldn't be where they are now. So it's super important. One of the other ones, we're tied to media. So 48% of people surveyed said that the website design of business, for their business, was their #1 factor in determining the credibility of that brand. So there are so many case studies, and feel free to take a photo of it, and I'll find a way to share it with you guys, but there's some really good case studies with this. So just to kind of give a bit of a background, and Abba did an amazing job, and I feel very humbled. Thank you so much. I started my career at O2, so I started in product, and then I worked my way through agency, consulting, and then I ended up back in product. Now, the reason for this is because Do were going through a digital transformation, but they were doing it the right way. They were starting from the ground up because there were so many pain points, and we're aware of them. What happened is they created a brand new team purely focused on solving this future state experience. And I'd love to show you the screens, but unfortunately I can't because they're in the making at the moment. But that's kind of the brief overview. And we started off here. So the power of experience design. We were that tiny little table there, and there were 3 designers. So when I first joined and they said, yep, Kizz, come on board, lead PwC, and you're going to lead the experience design practice. And I rock up and there was 3 of us. I was like, great, I should have done a site visit before the interview. So I quickly realized that experience or UX was a service for the team. It was to get the requirements from the business, all of these 15 years worth of pain points, and fix them and deliver to a backlog. And it just wasn't going to be successful if we do it that way. It's hard work. I knew what was coming. So what we ended up doing was really trying to understand how do we actually get the stakeholders on board and actually get the respect that design deserves. And how many of you can relate to that? Like trying to get respect at work and trying to get everyone on board and go, yes, this is the right way to go. Because the design team, it's like a double-edged sword. We're the cool guys that create the future. Everyone wants us for amazing presentations and inspire everyone. But at the same time, you kind of like do the job and go. So, show of hands, design isn't taken seriously where I work, right? And how do I get them to listen? Do you ever feel like that? And do you ever feel like, how do I convince them to change? Right? It's a shared pain point as creatives. And they want to innovate, but they don't want to fail, right? And it's difficult. And it takes really strong designers to actually be in transformations. So you have to be a design transformer. So one of the best things, I don't know, show of hands, has anyone seen Return to Space on Netflix? All right, this guy, good man. I recommend order a pizza from Pitfire, watch it, it's really good. So one of the things that Elon Musk mentions quite heavily in the documentary is failure. So every time they failed shooting a rocket up into space, it was his own money that he was actually putting into this. And every time, I think it was like 500 million, every time they sent a rocket and they were running out of budget. And the interviewer goes, well, you're almost out of money, you've got 1 rocket left, is it really worth it? And he goes, well, every failure we do, we learn how to do it better the next time. And funny enough, the last rocket that went up into space and landed correctly, unmanned as well, ended up actually making SpaceX what it is today. So please watch that, it was really inspiring. And also, if you feel inspired by it, then share it with your leadership as well, because one thing we have started to introduce in the digital transformation is actually sharing this with the senior leadership. Being the designers that don't just inspire the team, inspire your upper ups. How many people have heard this? I want a 2-click experience. Yeah? I can't stand that. Right, so we already know as designers, our goal is to get a customer from A to B with as little friction as possible. But in some cases, you do need more than 2 to 3 clicks. So these are just some of the battles that we face on a day-to-day basis, because they're used to their old mental model, something that's outdated. And what was mentioned earlier, customers are used to scrolling now. The behaviors change. And how many people here, where's the wow factor? Not again. Right, the reason why is Steve Jobs, here we go. He had to make an appearance. So design is not just what it looks like and feels like, design is how it works. So even Spotify started off like this. So it's okay to go live with an MVP. So why do you want the wow factor today when we aren't getting the basics right? And this is where Spotify are today. But that's because they had that design methodology in their mindset, and they transformed. So I wanted to share with you just 5 quick learnings from my journey of my 15-year career in design transformations. So I've been blessed to build experience design practices, not just for product companies, but also for government companies in Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait, very blessed. But some of the key learnings are so similar. There's a lot of correlation with them. So lesson 1, design strategy is critical, even at a team level. So even as creatives, if you feel that your company isn't taking design seriously, because you can actually influence the direction of a company, focus on your strategy inside your team, right? Build the ways of working how you want to work. We started off, for example, as a service, building from a backlog. Now we're there to inspire the team. And that's rippling through how other teams are doing their presentations, how other teams are talking and giving their weekly reports. How we speak to the board is how we speak to the team. We're the same guys. We rock up in jeans, trainers and a t-shirt, but we speak facts and we speak about the business first. So this is what we're trying to do internally, and it's working very successfully. One of the other areas is educate with the science of design. So as creatives, it's easy to discuss design and go, oh, they don't get it, or we should create this UI, or this user experience, this interaction design pattern, or this design system. But how do you get funding for that? You need to, how many times actually do you speak with your business and they're like, well, we're taking too long to do this, just do it, ship it. It's very disheartening. But if you educate why you're doing it, through, like, for example, our UX laws, that's one way to get them on your side. User research is one other way, and doing proper benchmarking is another good way. Inspired by showcasing, so I encourage you, I don't know whether you do this already, but what we introduced in order to get a seat at the table was showcase our work. Showcase mini case studies once a month. And we do that to the whole of the company. So we have almost 400 people join. We showcase as if we're doing a keynote, like an Apple type keynote. We decided let's lead by example. Let's not wait for someone else to say, yep, design is needed, but let's start now. As I mentioned, speak in the language of business. The executives, yes, they do benchmark and they see some really cool apps and they go, I want this app, I want to have the next Spotify or Airbnb. Awesome. That's a good vision to have. But our job is to get them there. So speaking the language of business allows us to get the stakeholder buy-in, get the funding, be able to hire the teams, scale the teams, be able to buy the right tools. For example, how many of the companies that you work with value learning and development? Yeah? Okay, so about 50-50. So one of the big things is when you speak the language of business, but through design, you can actually influence them and get the funding for that, and say we need to actually invest in our designers because they're the future of our company. They're going to take us to the next step, not for the next 5 years, but for the 10 years. And think about scalable design. So whenever we talk about design, we say, right, especially at Do, we talk about how it's quicker to build, it's faster to deliver, it's much more quicker to make changes. If we find from our discovery or from our research that we need to move a button from here to here, it's not a 1 week or 2 week delay, it's 3 hour delay. So that's why. And I showed you at the start where we started off at the back table, the coffee table at the back. This is the studio now, and we've done that in 2.5 years. And it's not just my doing, it's the team's doing too. And this is all of those 5 principles that we put into play that's got us here with the seat at the table. And now we're doing now we're almost at the point where it's experience-led rather than technology-led and rather than business-led. So this is where we're at today. And we started off just here, so we had only UX UI, and now or what I ended up doing was I pulled out the UX UI capabilities as one to product design. Is that best way that I could sell scaling the team as well. But also it's good having the same UX to do the UI for the type of projects we're on. We have content design, and I know there's a content designer there, so she's happy. So we really value content design because we're designing for multiple languages. We're designing for English, Arabic, we've got Russia in the future, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of languages we have to design for. We have design system where there's a huge amount of funding that I'm getting now into that. UI development, so we're building the real storybook so that we can actually start building. So basically the future vision is to have UX engineers so that we can build screens live. And then finally DesignOps. And just to kind of give you a quick overview of why there's a power of design or power of experience design. And you'll probably think, God, this guy talks a lot about numbers and business, because this is the only way to succeed in a corporate company. They aren't going to give us designers or creative problem solvers the respect unless you join an Apple or an established company that has a proper practice. Especially in this region, we have to educate a lot, but it makes us incredibly powerful designers, very powerful creative problem solvers. So over the next 5 years, after putting all of these changes in place and teams and processes, we're on track to save the company $3 million. We're now designing 3 times faster. We're now faster at onboarding new talent, 7 times faster, and 4 times faster at actually building the code now. So we're getting there, slowly, but a digital transformation, you have to take baby steps, 1 step at a time, but it takes a lot of tenacity. So this really is the true power of XD. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and I didn't bore you.
Hi, it was amazing, by the way. My name is Ahdan, I'm a product designer. So you have given a huge insight into how a design team can scale. So, but there is one question I've been meaning to ask someone with as expertise as you. So I work as a lone wolf designer. So it's gotten to a point, industries has gotten to a point that it's a normalcy that a single handles all of the things. So you've given an insight into how to scale that, how to preach design. So I want to know how, as a single designer, my output can vary to a design team. So
no, that's a really good question, and I empathise with you, because when I was at O2 originally as the O2 Money team, that fintech team, there was only one designer, and that was also me. But we did scale it, and the best advice in terms of that is you need to work out how much is your velocity, how much is your output now, versus if you were to have another version of you with you, and sell that to the business, sell that to your senior leadership. Tell them, look, I'm able to provide, I can get through, let's say, 3 or 4 user stories or this many features in a week or in a sprint. Times that by 2 if there was 2 of me, times that by 3 if there was 2 of me, and how does that affect my timeline? Because ultimately the business, I don't know where you work, I won't ask you in front of everyone, but you need to reduce that timeline as much as possible for the business. Because the more you spend time, the more time is wasted, unfortunately. It's a churn, it's a revenue churn. So you want to reduce that. So sometimes you do need to scale, but speak the numbers, it's not about I can create better design, because they aren't really, I don't know about the maturity of them, but they won't really care about that. They'll be like, how can we get more out to market as quickly as possible? How can we fail quicker? So on and so forth. So that's what I do. Just work out your velocity now, as today, and then work out the timeline of your current project, and times that by how many designers you need, whether they're lead designers, senior designers, junior designers. You might need a few more junior in order to achieve your speed, but that's how I'd work it, and then pitch that to your senior leadership for the budget to hire. Does that?
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Pratha Jain and Shruti. We have many things in common. I'm also Indian engineer MBA. My things up. So, what is your opinion? It's just being into certain role, or you can do something which you are passionate about.
That's a good point, so I think that's extreme. You're absolutely right, by the way. I don't believe that only certain roles should do certain things. I don't believe that at all. Maybe in like big companies and like companies that have a lot of positions and that can put in people for research, for everything, you can maybe be restricted by your title. Even then, I don't think you should be, So I'm at the moment in a startup where all of us are responsible for everything. And there is no lines, no rules, no boundaries, and everyone should be able to like speak to customers or even understand why you're doing what you're doing. And to be honest, that's what I call an empowered team. To be honest, like if everyone in the team, that is even if the engineers understand the reasoning behind why we are doing something for this customer problem, honestly, it results in much better solutions. Because then when you go into your workshops, you can see your engineer not questioning, like, why are we doing this? It's not a defend that, it's not that equation anymore. It's your engineer coming and telling us, oh, but you know what, we can do this better. We can build something else better. They will be telling you, like, why don't you go and find out if there is any proof by interviewing few customers and if there is any logic to this. So if your dev team, your engineering and your design and your PM are on the same page and are trying to explore the same problem together, that's a different thing. That's a completely different game, and that's when it becomes an empowered team. So no, I don't believe that you should stick to your roles at all. In fact, I think if there is a doubt or question or something in your mind, if there's something, if you're thinking that okay, there's something that can be better, you should definitely go and explore it. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. Most of the times I have been wrong for sure. So if that's the case, fine, accept and move on. But if the maybe cases where you're really right and you can find really good things. So yeah, do not be restricted by your roles, not at all.
Hi everyone. My question is to Kizz. So as you mentioned, you are supposed to figure out strategy, if not bottom up or let's say top to bottom, at least within your team. So keeping that in mind, how do you sort of figure out like the problem of microcultures? Like if you have a team, let's say, which spans across squads, scrum teams and whatnot. So how do you fight microcultures? But that's something like I want to know.
Yeah, we definitely get different microcultures as well, because it depends on who's leading your squad. It tends to be someone from business or product or scrum that leads the squad. So they determine the culture, the ways of working, the speed, the velocity, the happiness, the overall happiness of the team. To be honest with you, the way that we've adopted it is, as a design team, we can only control what we can control. So as some of them are in the audience, so they can vouch for me, like as a team, we're strong. How it operates in the squad is very different. A lot of it comes down to me having a conversation with the heads of the people that are leading the squads to say, hey, you need to check where you are here and so on and so forth. It's the soft skills, right? It's the politics behind it. But the ideal situation is to have a strong design team as a culture inside, because you can't determine the squad. Like, it's someone else's team, it's someone else's line manager, and so on and so forth. But for me and the team, we make sure that we're strong. We can actually do retrospects at the end of each and every. We try to do it at the end of every month. We don't do it at the end of every sprint, and try and see where we can improve, and then it's my job to go and fix it with the senior leadership.
Even within the design team, how do you fight that?
Sure. Okay. So the good thing is we're actually building customer products and B2B products, enterprise, and so on and so forth. The way that we do that is we've got multiple different releases happening at the same time. They're all happening in parallel. So once a designer has, this is why I went down the model of having product designers versus UX UI. So people weren't pigeonholed as working on the customer app and person working on a portal and so on and so forth. they can work wherever they need to work, and it's important for all the designers, including design system, including content design, to know all of the products and actually work on the products as a whole. You aren't just stuck with one vertical or one channel. That's what we've done. It does work smoothly, but we do have times where it's never perfect, where someone's on something they don't want to be on for too long. But what we try to do is ensure that once they've completed all of their backlog, they've done the release, they can then move on to the next release and jump onto another channel, for example.
So my question is kind of like a question that's sometimes frequently popped up among designers' mind. It's about AI. So my question is that, so you talked about how you have increased the speed of delivering wireframes, right? And because we have AI plugins right now in Figma, like Wiregen, and then you have UIZer, etc. They can build wireframes very fast, right? But they only extrapolate from a set of libraries, and they can't really take it out from our design systems. But they will soon, right? Like more products will come like that. So my question is that, how do we as designers stay ahead of AI?
That's a good question. So I wish that we could use these plugins, but we are a government entity. We can't use cloud services. Yeah, like, but I understand your point. Look, like, AI is here whether you like it or not. It's just, we already use it. We use ChatGPT for presentations or sending an email and changing the tone of voice and all of these things. I'm so sorry. It's not discrediting content design. But we do it. It's just how we adapt. We might end up becoming UX prompters and then adapting the design. But I'll be honest with you, I have had this conversation before with lots of friends. I don't see AI taking over design, because we have to design for human beings. Yes, it might filter out designs, it might filter out a journey and say, hey, rather than do that, you should copy this. It might take all of the different telco products around the world and say, this is the best journey that's successful today. Cool, that's great, but we'll still have to refine it for our market, our people. Of course, you're in Qatar, so you'll be designing English and Arabic as well. There's a different culture there, how we speak to customers. So to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to be a problem. If you're looking at workflow though, it will speed up workflow. It should speed up workflow, to be honest with you, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Hi everyone. First of all, thank you for the great insights, both of you, and another thanks to Amber to having a panel with product and design together, because normally it happens in silos, so that's really great. I'm Meenakshi. I work as a product manager. I have worked with different corporates and startups. So my question is actually to both of you. So whoever wants to take it first. So I have seen in startups and different corporates of the product and design working differently. And of course I have learned lessons. But I want to understand from you both, knowing from where you have started and where you are today. So what is your take on working together or the way you are working in product discovery, and also at the any enhancement layer where you are working to scale up the current products? So how do you do it in your practice as of today?
Honestly, for me, I think it should be a right balance, So I would like to tell you that, I would be very happy if I could have an engineer and a product person and a dev engineer and a designer, working together and exploring a problem statement. That would be amazing, right? And also a QA if possible. That would be really amazing, right? But then we also have to keep in mind that whenever we are taking an engineer or a designer, we are actually taking away time from dev time. So that's something that should be there in our mind for sure. So I think it's a balance. It should be a balance. Like while we should do the product discovery, all of us, everyone together, the workshops can be together, but maybe the individual things that you want to go and discover, like the analysis that you want to do, the insights that you want to explore, the tests that you want to design, all of that can be done maybe by one team alone. It doesn't have to be the product team, by the way. In a lot of the companies, design takes a lead on figuring out, okay, what should be done next, because they are more into the interviewing with customers and all of that. All that also happens. So it needs to be a balance. While all three need to be involved at some point or the other, it's okay if at some point for one team to take the lead and then, you know, like share the insights and then come together again a bit later.
Yeah, I agree. So it needs to be a two-way street. It's a fine line, a fine balance. The good thing about product is they might be closer to the business requirements and why we're doing something. As creators, we might go out and explore something else as well, but it's a relationship. The good thing is, but we're fortunate because our product owners and so on and so forth, they're actually, they want the art of the possible, they want the best of the best, but they have to also do it within the restraints that they have. So they can empathize with us and we can empathize with them. And that's how we have really strong, tight relationships. We butt heads, which is great. Like, I love it that we butt heads all the time because diamonds are made under pressure. It's just how we like to work, and nothing's ever going to be easy.
That's good.
But one of the things that we do is we, even from product side, we pick our battles, right? For the business sake, not for our own personal egos and what we want to do and this and the other. We all want the best products possible. That's the shared vision. We both want it, but we also know which ones are we going to actually fight for, which ones are worth fighting for the customer at the end of the day, and which ones are feasible. Sometimes we can shoot the gun and go for pie in the sky, but it's not feasible. Whereas products will be like, no, the customer just needs this. So it's a fine line, it's a fine balance, but yeah, that's how I'd say.
I would agree, and I would just add like one angle more to it, like impact prioritization. So if there are like two different views and you're like completely at conflict with each other, no, we should go in this direction, and design things, we should go in completely different direction, then you refer back to why you're doing what you're doing, right? And figure out what your expected impact is. And if it's not completely clear, then you come to a middle ground or like come to a agreement on a smaller base version or a phase one or like a MVP or something of that sort, which can be tested out.
But actually, you both touched on something that is actually really, really important, because you both talked about speaking the language of the business, right? Because and I think one thing about being a leader is you realize that 90% of your job is being a therapist to your team, because they come and cry to you about how, why don't they listen to me? Why don't they understand me? Why don't they feel me? And you know, so much of my conversation to them was, they don't need to understand you. You need to speak their language, and you need to empathize and understand them. Right? Like, especially with business stakeholders, they don't have the time to speak your language. So I'm curious, for both of you, in your roles as leaders, how did you actually teach your teams to speak the language of the business? And how did you also empower them to take ownership of that? Because no one's gonna come and do that for you, right? Because everyone's just too busy. So I'm just curious in your experiences. And I think partly it also ties to the question around promotion or progression and when to become a manager. I can guarantee everyone, no one's gonna progress if you don't speak that language, right? Like, if you just care about your craft, you're stuck in your role. But if you speak what you're saying, so that's my question to you guys. How did you get your teams to actually learn that?
Short and quick. So I think for me, what has worked is like individually identifying your audience and speaking their language, you know? So if you're going to, for example, if you're going to a CEO and if he's a very, very math type of person, he likes numbers, he understands impact to a problem, or he understands those kind of, only that's what he understands and that what translates to him, then you speak that language. If you're going to someone who does not speak that language, speaks a bit more on terms of, okay, in Q4, where are we going to be? In Q5, in Q1, where are we going to be? In Q3, where are we going to be? Like, you know, if that's their term or that's their language, then you translate your answer into that form. And like, I think that's what has worked for me. As individual people, you try and get your relationships up with them and try and speak their language to them. As to convincing the team in itself, honestly, I have just transferred the strategies and things that work for me to the team as well. And really driving that ownership and accountability inside the team, so that, you know, like, if you want to see this change happening, then, you know, do that extra work, do that extra homework, go and do that little bit of extra work, and then try and convince this person why you're doing what you're doing, and it might just work out.
Okay, so where do I start? Because it started actually from the hiring process for the team that I'm in now. I already knew the challenge that we were going to face being in a massive corporate for the past 15 years. They're used to the same thing and their expectation was the same thing because they came from telcos traditionally. So how it worked in Germany would work here and so on and so forth. So when I hired designers that, or creative problem solvers that were open to learning and were passionate about design, because you need to have that thick skin where we are. That's the number one thing that I probably would say picked out the right designers for the team. But also, we've got multiple different CXOs with different flavors. Some of them are very visual, some of them are very analytical, and we customize our presentations to whoever we're talking to. If we're talking to the CEO, we're very numbers focused. Super, the guy's so busy. If we're talking to, let's say, the CIO, we can be a bit more aesthetic and benchmark and show that finding. We can be a bit more granular to our thinking. But the team, the best way we've learned is by failing as well. Sometimes you go in and you expect to give them a wow presentation and actually the guy is just in a bad mood. And you close the door and it's just like, no, this is useless. Where's the wow factor? So yeah, it's really like about learning by failing as well as designers. I still do it as well, I'm not perfect. But yeah, it's just really talking about the numbers. If we're talking to, let's say, for example, the CIO, we'll talk to the CTO, Chief Transformation Officer. It's a very uncommon job title, but it's important for the program we're on. We show the value that we bring into the program, not the company, the program. If we're talking to the CIO, we talk about the business, the overall business, including the program. So it just depends who we're talking to. But the designers do an incredible job at doing it, and it happened because of who we hired. We hired the right introverts, the extroverts. We're misfits that work well together.
Hi, my name is Daniel. So my question is, what is the right time to start scalable design?
So the right time is the day you start. The minute you start building design systems in Figma just to help your day-to-day ways of working, that's already scalable design. You can start designing faster and faster and faster. You don't need to sell that. You just got to find the time in your sprint to do it. And it's part of your workflow. That's where I'd say it's right at the start. Scaling it to the size that we're trying to do now, that's taken 2.5 years to get to. But before we were doing it without funding. I didn't have a design system. I didn't have the budget for a design system squad or a team. I didn't have an individual specific to component design and testing the accessibility on components and dark mode and this, that, and the other. We didn't have that. We just found time in our sprints to do it and find the time to actually start showing the value. We picked up more user stories this month. Why did you do that? Well, we built this design system. We need to invest more in there. And now it's one of the most heavily funded teams.